Most fights in anime are full of flashy, over-the-top action, which is a lot of fun, of course, and I do love that. However, I gotta give props to Kengan Ashura, a fighting martial arts anime that actually does quite a good job of depicting realism in their fights, real martial arts techniques and that sort of thing, as much as you can. It's still an anime, so it's still going to be over the top. But I gotta say, out of any anime I've seen, I think Kengan Ashura probably has the most realistic technique in terms of realism, and especially in Season 2, Episode 8, which is what we're going to go over in this video. A fight in that episode, there's about a minute straight of just amazing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and even some wrestling, and it's a lot of fun. I'm going to do my best job in this video that I possibly can to break that down and explain what's going on. Now, I'm not sitting here acting like I'm some, expert. I'm just a humble blue belt in BJJ with one stripe. I also have a few years of Muay Thai under my belt and a little bit of wrestling and judo experience as well. And I've studied a lot of the Taekwondo guys like Superfoot Wallace because I think some of those kicks are really cool. Anyways, that's going to be the plan in this video. I'll see you in just a moment. All right, before we continue any further, let me make a quick disclaimer. It's not my intention at all to infringe on the IP of Kengan Ashura or Netflix here. If you want the full fight, absolutely go to Netflix, and it's just a great show anyway, so check it out over there. I'm simply going to break down about a minute and a half from this fight, and it's purely for educational purposes and, again, to kind of promote the show because the show is a lot of fun. So with that said, here we go. We're going to have two practitioners in this fight. We're going to have the gentleman in all black, who is Fang, and he's going to be the BJJ guy, and the gentleman without a shirt and just shorts on is Okubo, and he's the wrestling guy. Although, to be fair to each of them, they're both very good mixed martial artists that also know a lot of striking, but one's the wrestling guy, one's the BJJ guy. So here we go. And apologies in advance if I mix their names up. That very well may happen. But right now, we start already from the beginning with some great technique. It's a bit hard to make it out, but you can see one arm here, one arm here. You got Okubo on top, locking the hips down of Fang. This is exactly what Okubo wants to do. He's trying to get a dominant position here, get the mount, past these legs. You want to get past the legs, past the open guard into mount, and by locking down the hips, that limits Fang's movements. What Fang wants to do right here, ideally, is to make distance. One way to do that, for example, is to push Okubo's face away and hip escape out of there, get his legs free, and then work either the open guard or close the guard around him. You get the legs locked up. Or, of course, you can make distance and do a technical stand-up and get ready to continue striking. So what happens? Let's take a look. Got the takedown, and there you go. So Fang instantly starts breaking down the posture of Okubo. He wants to limit what Okubo can do, because if Okubo can posture up, for example, he can start just raining down strikes onto Fang. And of course, gravity is going to be in his favor, and those strikes are going to hurt quite a lot. So Fang's trying to nullify that. Okubo breaks out of that hold and indeed starts getting ready to land blows, just like we said. Boom, 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 lands those hits, and Fang is playing the open guard, so Fang wants to do a few things here. He doesn't want to just be tanking these hits. He's either going to want to, again, stand up, close the guard, or work some open guard. Do whatever you can to mitigate this damage. Maybe go for a sweep. That's also an option, so let's see what happens. Actually, the unthinkable. This is quite crazy. Okubo gives up the dominant position here, stops throwing attacks, and goes for a sneaky heel hook. You can see right here, grabs the leg and gets ready for a heel hook. And let me just tell you guys right now, heel hooks are scary. They really are. I don't even like training them, like drilling them, let alone actually being on the receiving end in a sparring match. Because the thing with heel hooks is that unlike most moves, most grappling moves, you don't feel the pain until you're injured. For example, most moves you feel the pain and you can have time to tap. For example, your arm bar, your arm is getting your arm is getting arm barred. I'm sorry, I'm fanboying a little bit over this amazing fight, and you can start feeling your elbow get hyperextended. You feel the pain and you have time to tap. That's not the case with a heel hook. Almost every time you're gonna get injured first, so you got to be really careful with it. So Okubo goes for the heel hook, falls back down, gives, again, that dominant position up. And what happens? He actually fails. So was it worth it? I don't know. I don't think it was. He probably should have just stayed in the dominant position, raining those punches down. But he tried to end the fight with a sneaky heel hook. It is what it is. It didn't work out. And both end up, in a neutral position. And Okubo goes again for the attacks. However, it's a bit too late, because Fang, being the BJJ master that he is, he uses that to his advantage. He takes one arm. So here's what happened. Okubo's going for the punches, right? Fang grabs that one arm, pulls him in, because at that point you have what we call one arm in, one arm out, which is exactly how you set up a triangle choke. So because one arm's in and the other one's out, right, because he's throwing punches, he grabs that arm, pulls him in, locks up a triangle choke. And this is also perfect technique almost by Fang. You see, he has the arm, he's got the triangle choke locked up, and he drags the arm across, which is what you want to do. The only way this could be a little bit better is if Fang moves himself a little bit more where my mouse is, if you can see that. If Fang could put his body here, it would be an even tighter choke. However, to be fair to Fang, look at this guy's legs. They're huge. When your legs are that big, you can kind of just brute force your way and it'll work. Although the person he's fighting, Okubo, is also a big dude with quite a thick neck, so it is what it is. Let's see what happens. Will he get the tap? Will the triangle choke work? Or will Okubo escape? You can see Okubo, he wants to escape from this, and he's, of course, doing the right thing here. He's grabbing that leg, trying to get it off. And not just that, man. You see perfect technique coming up right here. Okubo does what we call stacks. He stacks his opponent. He gets up. He puts all that weight on Fang's neck. So you can kind of see it right by my camera. All that pressure now, all of Fang's weight is on his neck. And for Fang to counter that, he would want to kind of get that weight more onto his scapula, because, man, if you have all that weight on your neck, that's a bad time, indeed. So Okubo does the right thing. He stacks Fang, and he starts pulling his arm out, freeing himself from that triangle choke, and it works. What Fang would want to do here, of course, is either transition to maybe an armbar or maybe start grabbing that leg to try to sweep, but we'll see what happens. Okubo actually ends up almost getting out, and Fang indeed transitions right here. And for a moment, I thought he was going to set up an omoplata, and I was screaming while I was watching this the other night, because this is already like an insane level of BJJ for an anime fight to have. To be honest, even what we've seen right now is quite unheard of. But if he went for an omoplata, I was going to freak out. Like, I've never seen that. He doesn't actually go for the omoplata. He does go for something kind of weird here. This is almost a reverse armbar. However, the elbow's on the wrong side. So the only way this move would work is if he actually had the other arm. If he had that arm, he could get the armbar on this. Of course, if the position was a little bit different, he's not going to get the armbar here, and they end up in some sort of scramble. Now, as a wrestler, they love scrambling. Wrestlers have that explosive, powerful, physique and all that. They love to scramble. And as a BJJ guy myself, I really don't like fighting wrestlers. I don't like scrambles. I like to kind of just work the technique, mostly kind of slow at times and then be explosive when you need it. But man, a wrestler will have that energy and that power whenever they need it. So let's see what happens. Ends up not getting any move here, and Fang actually ends up getting in a very bad position. This is very bad. Okubo is putting pressure on that leg to pass the guard. Now, what Fang is going to want to do here is either, of course, square up and, again, close the guard on Okubo, or make some distance, work a move or something. But right now, this is a terrible position for Fang to be in. Okubo, highly dominant here. He's about to pass the guard and get the side control. Let's see what happens. He puts pressure, but he makes a mistake. He makes a mistake there. He puts too much pressure forward, and Fang, again, being the master that he is, feels that the weight is throwing off, and he uses Okubo's weight against him and just flips him right over into what the show calls a scarf hold, which is correct, but I'll give you guys the judo name of this as well. This is called the Kesugatami. It's a very bad position to be in. So this is also perfect technique, and this is why I'm so excited, man, because not only are they doing these moves, but they're actually doing the perfect technique too, for the most part. What's the perfect technique right here? See how Fang's hand is on Okubo's arm, and he's like pulling it up? Take a look at me now as an example. When your arm is getting pulled up that way, you can see it's even getting a bit tough for me to talk. That's because your shoulder blade starts cutting into your airways, and just being in that position, man, is super uncomfortable. You have this huge dude, all his weight is just pinning you down, and he's pulling your arm as hard as he can, which is uncomfortable in itself, plus the fact that it starts cutting into your airways. And, he's also got almost what we call a crossface here. It's when you really drive your shoulder down, sometimes your arm. There's different ways of doing the crossface, but there's all kinds of pressure here. Okubo is not having a good time. Look at his face, man. He is not enjoying this at all. But what does Okubo do? What a wrestler most likely would do in this situation, at least a wrestler with no BJJ experience or a little amount. He starts going for just brute power, man. He gets an arm around Fang's stomach, gets the full grip there, and just throws him off straight up, just powers through it, again, wanting to get that scramble, and they end up in a little bit of a scramble there. Fang starts squaring up and gets the knee shield right here, which is what Fang wants to do. Again, you don't want to be on the bottom of a big dude like this, raining punches down on you, so Fang is, again, want to either close the guard or sweep him. or any sort of thing like that. And that knee shield right there is the first step, because from here he can work, for example, a scissor sweep, and it kind of stops the movement of Okubo. However, of course, Fang is at risk of Okubo coming around the side here and passing the guard again. So let's see what happens as Okubo rains those hits down. He starts trying to, look at this. So Fang squares up, starts working the open guard. Fang grabs Okubo's arm here to try to stop the pressure, man, because you don't want to be taking those hits. You want to try to stop those arms whatever way you can. Maybe he'll try to close the guard up or whatever. Okubo's obviously going to want to stay postured up, which is what he's doing here, and let's see what happens. He keeps raining the blows, stays postured up. Fang's trying to stop the punches still, and there you go. Okubo kind of overcommits to the punches a little bit. Fang starts breaking him down. His posture at this point is broken down, so Okubo is not in a great spot here. Yes, he's on top, but Fang is actually in arguably the dominant position. Fang has Okubo's posture broken down, and Fang has him in full guard. So at this point, there's any number of things that Fang can work on Okubo. He can go for a triangle choke. He can go for an armbar. He can go for a Kimura. He can go for an omoplata. He can go for a sweep. Any number of things, really. Let's see what happens. He actually swims, which is what they teach you in BJJ. It's a very viable move from there, and it's one that I actually like myself. So what he does there is, because Okubo's arms are kind of stuck on his chest, because Okubo doesn't want to lose his balance, right? Okubo's arms were both on Fang. So Fang swims his arms in and breaks the arms to the side. At that point, with the arms on the side like that, you are completely open for moves, and that's what Fang does. He goes for the Kimura here. He uses his hips, gets out to the side a little bit, wraps up a Kimura, and he can almost end the fight right here. What he'd want to do is he'd want to get that leg, he'd want to open the guard a bit, get this leg up across Okubo's back, Again, fanboying too much, gotta calm down a little bit. Fang would want to get that leg across Okubo's back and kind of hip out a little bit, pinning Okubo to the ground as he cranks that Kimura and completely rips his arm out of the socket, tearing his shoulder up. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, but that's the idea. So Okubo, of course, would want to counter this. He doesn't want to get tapped. He's about to lose the fight right here, about to lose the fight. So what happens? The crowd goes wild. They're cheering on. See what's going to happen. We gotta be careful with the playing and pausing, because, again, this stuff's copyrighted. YouTube has an audio visual detection system, which is really annoying. So off screen, Okubo does get out of the Kimura. Not sure how, again, it happened off screen, but Okubo goes for the back here. Now, there's some big differences from what a BJJ guy and a wrestling guy would do at this point. Okubo, being the wrestler that he is, goes for that full hold, wraps around the body, and he would probably then try to dump him or throw him over. Again, I don't know the wrestling terminology. I'm not a wrestling guy. I'm a BJJ guy. I know, the only thing I know about wrestling: double leg, single leg, ankle pick, sprawling, some takedown defense. I don't know the nitty gritty details at all. So the other option for Okubo at this point is to do what a BJJ guy would do. And that's not just throw the dude. That's to actually get the back. You want to get your legs in there, get your hooks in there, so to speak, one leg on each side. And then you can start working like the rear naked choke or something like that. But of course, Okubo, being the wrestler that he is, just throws Fang. He just throws Fang, or at least tries to. Doesn't work out so well. Fang counters it. At this point, Okubo could still try to get the back. However, his right leg is pinned by Fang's weight, so getting the back would be a struggle. Fang has a chance to get out of this very bad position right now, and he does just that. Instead of shrimping, so to speak, over the pinned leg, though, he squares up and starts to get in Okubo's full guard, which is completely viable. A wrestler, even though full guard and open guard are dangerous positions for a BJJ guy to use on someone, a wrestler doesn't like being on their back. They hate it. So there's not so much that Fang's in danger of right here. For example, Okubo's not going to try to Kimura him or any of that stuff. He's a wrestler after all. So let's see what happens. Fang steps over that leg to try to pass the guard. This is, again, proper technique. He's keeping the pressure. That shoulder is driving his weight down on Okubo, and he steps over that leg to pass the guard. So what Okubo would want to do here, of course, is keep trying to square up, keep trying to get that leg back, put him back into the open or closed guard, because if he gets past, it's going to be trouble. Let's see what happens. Ooh, it actually does the unthinkable. He just straight up bench presses him off. So when you don't have that great of technique, you tend to see this stuff from guys that are like really big and strong. They can sometimes just kind of cheese their way out of positions like that by, again, just kind of brute forcing their way out of it, which is what we see right there. So let's go one more time. Turns around, and then Okubo, watch, he's just going to push the guy off him straight up. Just pushes him off right here. Gets both hands under, bench presses him right off. And he actually does do some great technique right here, though. Don't get me wrong. There is something very subtle here, and that's called an arm drag. So he didn't just straight up bench press him off with no technique. I should kind of redact that. There was technique there. It just happens very, very slowly, and it's easy to miss. So he arm drags his way out, which is a very viable way of escaping from a position like that. You can see he has the grip on the wrist. He arm dragged him, meaning that Fang is going to fall where Okubo was. And since Okubo's body has now moved, that's going to allow Okubo to get the dominant position again. But let's see what happens. So they actually end up both standing up, and Okubo goes for the guillotine right here, takes advantage of that position, and Okubo almost ends the fight with a guillotine, man. You don't want to be getting guillotined by anybody, especially a wrestler, especially a dude like this who's just completely ripped. This is very dangerous. Fang could have lost the fight right here. He could have been tapped out. However, the guillotine's a little bit sloppy. Okubo goes to sit back and lock the guillotine in. Fang uses that opportunity to break out, and he pushes Okubo, pushes himself back, and he lands on his back and starts working the open guard here. So at this point, it's a pretty neutral position. Okubo's on top, Fang's on the bottom, but Fang has an open guard. He hasn't been passed yet, so this could kind of go any sort of way. Again, Okubo at this point is going to want to try to pass the guard or stand up. Fang, of course, either going to want to close the guard or work a sweep or something. So let's see what they do. He works the sweep. And this is called the pendulum sweep. It's got the right technique and everything for the most part. Again, this is anime, so take everything I'm saying with a little grain of salt, guys. But this is pretty much the perfect technique for a pendulum sweep. You get your hips out a little bit. You get one leg cutting into the side here and the other leg shoving up in the dude's armpit, and you just sweep him. Now, it's kind of close to a scissor sweep. The difference is a scissor sweep, he would have that leg more on the inside using his shin. His shin would be across the stomach of Okubo, and he would kind of push with that and cut with the bottom leg. So it's easy to kind of miss the difference there, but this is indeed a pendulum sweep. And my gosh, there's just so many different techniques going on here in a matter of seconds. It is amazing. They did a great job on this fight. It's so much fun. He sweeps him, he gets the full mount, and now Fang is in the one of the most dominant positions you can be in, full mount away from the legs. It could be really bad here for Okubo, but Okubo just explodes. He just gets out of there, man. You just have that wrestling power, just explodes. Fang holds on, tries to get the back. Let's see what happens. They end up in a scramble. Not so great for Fang. Again, man, scrambling is much more of a wrestler's game than the BJJ guys, and they kind of end up at that point almost done with the scene. So let's skip this talking. And that's pretty much actually the end of the BJJ part of this fight, at least. It ends with Okubo being on top, Fang being on the bottom. Very bad position for Fang. And there's some plot here, to be fair. Fang kind of lets it happen. And at that point, it's just anime plot. All right, if you made it to the end of the video, I'll give you a little look. I'm even wearing my special BJJ shirt for this one. Take a look. It's got 2 black belts. Hopefully in like 20 years, I'll be a black belt. That would be nice. It says ground game. Let's play, you know. Like retro letters, game, ground game. Yeah, you get the pun. It's a cool shirt. I like it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. And for the kind people who promoted my last video, I got some shouts out. If you guys enjoyed this one, please consider sharing it, hitting the thumbs up button, subscribing if you're not already, and double check that you are. YouTube's been doing that weird stuff. All right, I gotta take a breather, man. I'm fanboying way too much over this fight. Shouts out to Spin Master Rakta, the Lancaster Kid, Coden X, John Edwards, Skelly Kitty, and Joshua B. Thank you for your assistance in promoting that earlier video over on Twitter. That's all I got for you guys in this one. I'll see you next time.